Welcome back to the Moral Matrix. I'm so glad you're here. Today, we're going on a brand new adventure. Are you ready? Let's dive into the story.
Pip, a shy ginger cat, was Maya's anchor in a loud world. His presence was usually defined by a warm spot on the worn armchair or a persistent, gentle headbutt at dawn. So when the back door was left ajar one Tuesday and Pip vanished, the silence in the apartment was not peaceful. It was a gaping orange void. Maya spent the first night walking the streets, calling his name until her throat was raw. Every rustle of leaves was hope, every shadow a cruel trick. The sheer physical panic of not knowing where he was, or if he was safe, felt heavier than any grief she had ever known. She imagined him cold, scared, and alone, and it broke her heart. The second night, Maya sat on the porch step, wrapped in her heaviest blanket, exhausted and defeated. She had accepted the cruel statistics of the city. Just as the eastern sky began to bleed a pale gray, a faint, tiny meow sliced through the pre-dawn stillness. A small, muddy figure, moving with the suspicious caution of a general surveying newly conquered territory, padded around the corner of the shed. It was Pip. He stopped a foot away, looked at her with huge, accusatory yellow eyes, and then, with a mighty dramatic leap, landed squarely in her lap. He immediately began kneading her cardigan, purring a rumbling, deafening sound that vibrated through her whole body. Maya didn't cry. She just buried her face in his scruffy neck, inhaling the damp scent of leaves and fear and home. The orange silence was over, replaced by the profound, demanding noise of a cat that had simply decided he was done with adventure. The hiker walks on a wide concrete path, shoulder to shoulder with several other people, all heading in the same direction. The air feels stiff and the scenery is unremarkable. The hiker looks bored and slightly frustrated, their eyes scanning the dull surroundings. Suddenly, the hiker notices a tiny break in the dense trees, a narrow, almost invisible dirt track winding away from the main route. They pause, taking a moment to look from the predictable path to the dark, uncertain gap. A smile creeps onto their face. Without hesitation, the hiker ducks under the low-hanging branches and steps onto the secret path. A rapid montage of challenges begins. The hiker quickly scrambles over a mossy log, slides down a short embankment, and pushes through thick ferns. The journey is rough, but their excitement is visible. The hiker bursts out of the final thicket, blinking against a sudden bright light. They stand at the edge of a sheer cliff, overlooking a stunning, perfectly clear hidden lake nestled in a valley, completely untouched and silent. The hiker stands for a long moment, taking in the magnificent view, a reward only for those who dared to leave the crowd. They turn to the camera, their face confident and relaxed, and simply nod. The elephant and the ants. Once upon a time, in the vast savanna, lived a big, proud elephant who loved to bully smaller animals. Every day he would spray water at the innocent anthill, making life difficult for the tiny creatures. Tired of his cruel games, the ants decided to teach him a lesson. One sunny afternoon, as the elephant was napping, they bravely crawled into his trunk and began to bite him from the inside. The elephant woke up with a start, dancing and howling in pain, his loud cries echoing through the plains. He realized his mistake and begged for forgiveness from the tiny ants. He promised to never hurt them, or any other creature, ever again. From that day forward, the elephant kept his word. He learned to live in peace and harmony with all the animals of the savannah, a gentle giant who had learned the true meaning of kindness. Jane and Brandon, dreaming of a grand vacation but facing meager savings, decided on a budget coastal road trip instead. Inspired by their journey and knack for finding deals, they launched Wanderlog, a travel blog documenting their budget hacks and sharing Brandon's breathtaking photography. The blog quickly became a sensation, drawing followers who loved their honest, inspirational content. Soon, the digital world took notice. Offers poured in, travel company reviews, local business collaborations, and requests to buy prints and digital downloads of their stunning photos. What began as a simple, low-cost road trip quickly transformed into a sustainable, profitable adventure. Jane and Brandon returned home with a thriving business and a brand new life, having proven that creativity and determination can turn a limited budget into limitless opportunity. Once upon a time, a tortoise lived on his own terms in a jungle. He was quiet, polite, and non-interfering. In the same town lived a hare who loved to talk about the many awards he had won for always finishing first in a race. One day he approached the tortoise and said, "Why don't you learn to walk faster? If you do, we can race someday." The tortoise only smiled at him and moved on. The hare was in a wicked mood. Every day he would approach the tortoise at the same place and pass the same comment. One fine day, when the hare challenged him again, the tortoise replied, "All right, I accept the challenge." He looked around and saw the other jungle animals clapping their hands and cheering him on. A few days later, the race began. The entire jungle came to a standstill to see the result of this great challenge. When the race began, the hare overtook the tortoise within no time. His speed was remarkably high, making him cover a considerable distance on the track. When he looked back and saw how far behind he had left the tortoise, the hare decided to stop running and rest for a while. He lay down under a huge banyan tree on one side of the track. The lovely shade of the leaves sent him into a deep slumber. Meanwhile, the tortoise ran slowly without giving up and stopping. As time passed, he gradually caught up with the hare, who was still sleeping. The tortoise crossed by him and continued moving towards the winning line. Slowly but surely, the tortoise reached the finish line and won the race. The entire town started clapping for the tortoise. The loud cheers woke up the hare from his deep sleep. He woke up not realizing what had happened. He rubbed his eyes and thought, "Gosh, the tortoise must still be struggling." The hare got up and dashed towards the winning post. When he got there, he saw that to his surprise, the tortoise was wearing the victory crown, and all the other animals were congratulating him. The tortoise saw the hare from a distance and smiled at him. The hare sat down, regretting the action that made him lose the race against the slowest animal in the jungle.
In the heart of a quaint little town, where cobblestone streets wound between cozy homes adorned with colorful flower boxes, lived a young inventor named William. His workshop, a sanctuary of wonder, was filled with an array of prototypes that gleamed in the soft light filtering through the dusty windows. The air was rich with the smell of wood shavings and the faint metallic tang of tinkering tools, each item whispering stories of creativity just waiting to be unleashed. Yet despite his brilliance, William often felt like a shadow, retreating into the corners of his own mind, his heart heavy with the weight of self-doubt. Every invention he crafted was a piece of his soul, yet he kept them carefully hidden, fearing the judgment of the townsfolk. The laughter of the children outside, echoing through the streets, felt like a distant melody, a reminder of the connections he longed for but could not grasp. One crisp morning, an unexpected invitation arrived, fluttering through his door like a timid bird. The local fair for inventors promised excitement and opportunity, yet anxiety coiled tightly in William's chest. The thought of putting his creations on display was terrifying. What if no one liked them? But deep down, a flicker of hope ignited. Perhaps this was his moment to break free from the chains of fear. As the day of the fair approached, the air buzzed with anticipation, and the scent of freshly baked pastries wafted through the town square. William set up his booth, his hands trembling, heart racing like a wild stallion. The vibrant colors of the fair surrounded him. Bright banners fluttered in the wind, and laughter echoed like music. When the townsfolk began to gather, their curious eyes lit up as they discovered his inventions, ranging from whimsical flying machines to clever gadgets designed to make everyday life easier. To his astonishment, the reactions were not of ridicule, but of genuine admiration. In that moment, William realized he was not alone. He had the heart of the community beating alongside him. Among the crowd, he spotted another inventor, Emma. Her fiery spirit and contagious enthusiasm resonated with him. They struck up a conversation, sharing their experiences, fears, and dreams, and in each other's eyes, they found the spark of understanding. With Emma by his side, William's confidence began to blossom. Together, they forged an unstoppable partnership, blending their ideas and inspiring one another to dream even bigger. As weeks turned into months, the local innovation community embraced him, and William found himself sharing not just inventions, but visions of a brighter future for all. The town that once overlooked his talent now celebrated his creativity, his journey from self-doubt to recognition becoming a beacon of inspiration. With each invention unveiled, William learned that vulnerability was not weakness, it was the gateway to connection. And as he watched children marvel at his creations, he understood that sharing his gifts, no matter how small, could ignite hope in others. William's story became a tapestry woven with threads of courage, friendship, and the unwavering belief that everyone has something extraordinary to offer to the world. In a remote village, nestled between rolling hills and lush green fields, there lived an old tailor named Elias. His tiny shop, adorned with faded curtains and the scent of freshly cut fabric, was the heartbeat of the village. The rhythmic sound of his sewing machine was a comforting lullaby for the townsfolk, as he meticulously crafted garments that adorned the villagers, each stitch a testament to his skill and dedication. Despite the modest size of his shop, Elias charged fair prices, ensuring that every family, rich or poor, could find something to wear. One brisk autumn morning, as leaves danced in the wind, a resident named Malik stormed into the shop, his face flushed with indignation. "Elias, you have a treasure trove of wealth, yet you turn a blind eye to the suffering around you. The butcher, Ahmed, gives away meat to the needy without a thought for himself. Why don't you lend a hand to those who are struggling?" Elias, with tired but wise eyes, looked up from his work, the sunlight streaming through the window, illuminating the lines etched upon his face. "My dear Malik, God alone knows our intentions. It is He who judges how we use our means. I give in my own way, silently and without need for recognition." Malik's fury ignited further. He stormed out, leaving behind a trail of whispered rumors that echoed through the village. Elias, the stingy tailor, hoards wealth while the poor suffer. As the days turned to weeks, the once bustling shop grew silent, the laughter and chatter of the villagers fading into a distant memory. Elias fell ill, a creeping malaise that took hold of his frail body. Yet not a single villager crossed the threshold of his shop to offer help or comfort. Eventually, Elias succumbed to his illness, passing away in solitude, his heart heavy with the weight of unappreciated kindness. The village mourned not the man, but the rumors that had tainted him in shades of greed. But life in the village continued, and 1 month after Elias's departure, Ahmed, the butcher, halted his generous meat donations. The villagers were puzzled, approaching him with questions. "Why have you stopped helping the poor?" they pressed. With a heavy heart, Ahmed replied, "The meat I shared came not solely from my pocket. It was Elias who provided the funds each month to support my charity. His generosity was hidden beneath layers of misunderstanding. Without him, I cannot continue." In that moment, the villagers realized the profound truth they had overlooked. Their judgments had silenced kindness and snuffed out a light that cared deeply for their well-being. Overwhelmed with guilt, they gathered in Elias's memory, vowing to honor his spirit by helping one another, ensuring that no one would feel alone again. Thus the village transformed, learning the invaluable lesson that true generosity often hides in the quiet corners of the heart.
The Kitten Who Chased a Cloud. Mittens was a small, fluffy kitten with fur the color of warm cream and eyes like green emeralds. Mittens loved to chase things, wobbly ladybugs, dusty sunbeams, and especially the twitchy end of his own tail. One afternoon, Mittens was batting at a leaf when he saw the perfect, fluffiest thing drifting above the fence. It was a cloud. It looked soft, like a giant, slow-moving cotton ball. Mittens knew with all his kitten heart that he must catch it. He crouched low and then leaped up as high as he could, straight at the cloud. Pfft. He only managed to snag a single piece of fluff from the old garden hedge. The cloud just kept floating lazily away. "It's too high," Mittens grumbled. He needed to be taller. First, he tried climbing the clothesline pole, but it was too slippery. Next, he tried sitting on top of the big, bumpy garden gnome. That was better, but the cloud was still miles above his whiskers. Finally, Mittens spotted the tallest thing in the garden, the huge old pear tree. Mittens began to climb, pushing past sticky leaves and scratchy bark. Higher and higher he went, his little paws grasping tight. When he finally reached the very tip-top branch, he was dizzy, but he was higher than anything. He took one more mighty leap, stretching his paws toward the white puff, and he caught nothing but cool, fresh air. Mittens sighed and looked down. The cloud had drifted right past the tree. He felt sad until he looked around. From the very top of the pear tree, he could see the whole world. He saw the tiny river snaking through the fields. The roofs of faraway houses in his own garden looked like a green and brown toy box. Just then, the cloud he was chasing drifted directly overhead. Mittens realized he didn't need to catch it. He could just watch it float by. As it passed, a tiny cool drop of water fell right onto his nose. Mittens giggled. The cloud hadn't been far away after all. It had just been waiting for him to get high enough to say hello. He climbed down, satisfied. Mittens never caught the cloud, but he found something much better. The best view in the whole world, and a new friend that occasionally offered him a gentle sprinkle on the nose. The Little Rabbit Who Followed the Rainbow. Once upon a time, in a cozy little burrow under a big oak tree, lived a curious little rabbit named Barnaby. Barnaby loved to explore. One sunny morning, he decided to venture further than he ever had before. He hopped past the babbling brook, wiggled his nose at a patch of sweet-smelling wildflowers, and then he saw it, a magnificent, sparkling rainbow stretching across the sky, its colors so vibrant they took his breath away. Barnaby had never seen a rainbow up close before, and he wondered if there was a pot of gold at the end, just like the old stories said. With a twitch of his whiskers and a skip in his hop, he decided to follow it. The rainbow led him over rolling green hills and through a whispery forest where the leaves danced in the breeze. He met a friendly squirrel who shared his acorns and a wise old owl who hooted a greeting. Barnaby thanked them and continued on his way, his little heart full of excitement. Finally, as the sun began to dip low in the sky, Barnaby reached the end of the rainbow. But instead of a pot of gold, he found something even more wonderful, a beautiful meadow filled with the most colorful butterflies he had ever seen. They fluttered and danced in the soft evening light, their wings like tiny stained glass windows. The music box of the Whispering Woods. Ilara lived on the edge of the Whispering Woods. Her small house was built of gray, ancient stone. Every night the wind carried a faint, crystalline sound. She dismissed it for years as just the branches rubbing. But tonight the sound was louder, more insistent. It was the chime of a tiny metallic bell, ringing far-off curiosity. A dangerous moth finally pulled her out the door. She grabbed her oldest lantern, its glass dusty with disuse. The moon was a fractured coin above the black, swaying pines. The air grew cold, smelling sharply of pine needles and frost. The ringing intensified, guiding her deeper into the shadows. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic little drum. She stumbled upon a small, forgotten clearing she'd never seen. In the center, a miniature silver music box sat on a mossy log. It was the source of the chime, rotating slowly on its own axis. A single folded parchment rested beside it, untouched by time. Ilara didn't hesitate. She reached a hand out for the mysterious note. The paper felt cool, almost electrical, beneath her fingertips. She knew opening it meant the end of her quiet, simple life. But the ringing stopped, and she held her breath, beginning to read.
In a beautiful house that once echoed with laughter lived a sweet and kind girl named Ella. The sun streamed through the windows, casting warm golden rays upon the faded furniture, remnants of better days. But the warmth faded with the loss of her mother, and her father, hoping to bring joy back into their lives, married a woman whose heart was as cold as the winter chill. Soon, tragedy struck again as Ella's father passed, leaving her alone with her new stepfamily, who revealed their true, cruel colors. The stepmother and her two daughters, Drizella and Anastasia, were vain and selfish, their laughter ringing hollow in the once happy home. They stripped Ella of her fine clothes, dressing her in rags that hung loosely on her frail frame, and forced her to work as a servant in her own home. Each day was a relentless cycle of cooking, cleaning, and serving. Her spirit was worn down like the soles of her bare feet. She often sought warmth by the fireplace, where the embers danced and crackled, but instead of comfort, she was dusted with cinders, earning her the cruel nickname Cinderella. Yet, despite her misfortune, Cinderella nurtured her gentle heart, talking to the birds and mice that flitted around the house, her only friends in a world that felt so very lonely. One fateful day, a grand invitation arrived, its parchment embossed with gold leaf, announcing a magnificent royal ball hosted by the king and queen for the prince. The news sent her stepmother and stepsisters into a frenzy of excitement, their minds spinning with dreams of winning the prince's heart. They gushed over silks and satins, twirling in front of mirrors, while Cinderella, with a heart full of longing, knew she would never be allowed to attend. As she helped her stepsisters prepare, one of them sneered, "Imagine poor Cinders at the ball. You'd ruin the velvet with your soot." The mocking laughter echoed in her ears as she stifled her tears, feeling the sting of their cruelty. The dreadful night arrived, and with it, the sound of the carriage wheels rolling away left Cinderella alone and weeping by the fireplace, the flickering flames mirroring the sorrow in her heart. Just as despair threatened to consume her, a gentle light filled the kitchen, illuminating the space with an ethereal glow. In the middle of the brightness stood a kind elderly woman, Cinderella's fairy godmother. "Don't cry, my dear," she said, her voice soothing like a balm. "You shall go to the ball." With a wave of her magic wand, the ordinary was transformed into the extraordinary. A pumpkin morphed into a splendid golden carriage. 4 mice became beautiful white horses. A rat took on the role of a dignified coachman, and 4 lizards turned into footmen, their scales glimmering under the enchanted light. Finally, Cinderella's ragged clothing swirled into a breathtaking blue gown, and delicate glass slippers adorned her feet, sparkling like stars against the night sky. But the fairy godmother's warmth was accompanied by a warning. At the stroke of midnight, the magic ends, and everything will return to its original form. With a heart pounding with excitement and a hint of fear, Cinderella promised to heed her advice. At the ball, she radiated beauty and grace. The very air shimmered around her. No one recognized the girl who had been so cruelly treated. The prince, captivated by her elegance, danced only with her, his eyes filled with wonder. In that moment, surrounded by laughter and music, Cinderella forgot her troubles, every spin and twirl lifting her spirits higher. Yet, as the evening wore on, the clock chimed the 11th hour, and panic surged through her. Remembering her godmother's warning, she rushed away, the prince following close behind. The clock struck midnight, and as she raced down the palace steps, she felt the magic beginning to fade. In her haste, she lost one of her glass slippers on the staircase, but she could not stop to retrieve it. In a heartbeat, she leapt into her pumpkin-turned carriage, feeling the fabric of her dress dissolve back into rags, leaving only the single glass slipper, a shimmering reminder of her enchanting night. The prince, heartbroken to find only the glass slipper, vowed to find the maiden whose foot it fit and make her his bride. The next day a royal messenger traversed the kingdom, carrying the glass slipper, as eager maidens tried it on, but it fit no one. Finally, he arrived at Cinderella's house. Drizella and Anastasia, desperate to claim the prince's heart, pushed and squeezed, even attempting to cut their feet, but to no avail. Cinderella watched from the staircase, her heart heavy with both hope and resignation. When the stepmother tried to lock her in the attic, the messenger, having been instructed to allow every maiden a chance, insisted she be allowed to try. As Cinderella approached, her stepsisters snickered, their laughter mingling with her shyness. With a calm determination, she sat down and slipped her foot into the glass slipper. It fit perfectly, as if crafted just for her. To their astonishment, Cinderella revealed the matching slipper from the pocket of her ragged dress. Instantly recognized as the princess from the ball, Cinderella felt a rush of emotion as her stepmother and stepsisters fell to their knees, begging for forgiveness. But with a heart full of grace, she offered them kindness, leaving them to ponder their actions, and walked away from the past that had held her captive for so long. She was taken to the palace, where the prince welcomed her with open arms, joy radiating from his smile. Soon after, they were married in a grand ceremony, the bells ringing in celebration while the sun cast a warm golden glow over the kingdom. And so, Cinderella, once a girl of rags and sorrow, found her place among the stars, living happily ever after, her heart forever bright with hope.
If you want any more stories, comment. I will do it for you. The Typewriter Thief. Peace Chamber. Leo, a writer living on the 4th floor, finds his most prized possession, a heavy obsidian black 1947 Royal Standard typewriter, stolen without a trace of forced entry. He immediately suspects his silent neighbor, Silas, who lives directly below. Peace. Leo breaks into Silas's apartment, finding it empty except for an enormous black cabinet. Inside, he discovers the Royal Standard completely disassembled. The keycaps removed, the carriage return gone, and every mechanical piece connected to micro-audio sensors. The cabinet is a custom recording booth. He presses play on a nearby reel-to-reel recorder. What he hears is not writing, but a perfect symphony of mechanism. The metallic click, the bright ding of the carriage return, and the smooth whir of the gears. Silas is a sound artist, stealing the typewriter's pure sustain and honest rhythm, untouched by the distraction of language. When Silas returns, Leo realizes the depth of the theft. It wasn't the machine, but its irreplaceable sound, the very foundation of Leo's creative world that had been claimed by another's art. Leo leaves without calling the police, haunted by the perfect, pure ding in the silence.
In a small, sun-kissed village nestled between rolling green hills, there lived a kind old woman named Ilara. Her wrinkled hands had cradled the hearts of many, and her gentle smile could warm even the coldest of days. One crisp morning, while wandering through the woods, Ilara stumbled upon an unassuming clay pot half buried in the soft earth. As she brushed away the dirt, she was taken aback when the pot spoke to her, its voice a soft, melodic chime. "What would you have me do?" it asked. Curiosity danced in her eyes as she discovered the magical phrases that would unlock the pot's gifts. "Pot, cook porridge," and "Stop, little pot." Ilara, with a heart full of compassion, decided to use the pot's wondrous ability to create endless bowls of delicious, warm porridge. Each day, the villagers gathered at her cottage, their faces lighting up with joy as they savored the comforting meal. The earthy scent of cinnamon and sugar wafted through the air, wrapping around them like a cozy blanket, and laughter filled the space, mingling with the aroma. However, not all who witnessed Ilara's good fortune felt joy. Her greedy neighbor, Barnaby, a man with a perpetual scowl etched into his face and a heart as hard as stone, watched from his rickety porch with envy simmering deep within. With a mind twisted by greed, he plotted to steal the pot, believing it would grant him endless feasts without the need to share. One moonlit night, when the village lay wrapped in slumber, Barnaby crept into Ilara's garden and snatched the pot, his heart racing with excitement. He could already taste the creamy porridge on his tongue as he set it down in his dim kitchen. With a triumphant shout, he declared, "Pot, cook porridge!" Instantly, the pot sprang to life, filling his home with a bubbling cauldron of delicious porridge. But in his greedy haste, Barnaby forgot the second crucial command. As the creamy mixture began to overflow, panic gripped him. "Stop, little pot," he yelled, but the pot continued to churn, its contents spilling over the rim and flooding his kitchen. Porridge oozed out the door and onto the village path, creating a milky river of disaster. Hearing the commotion, Ilara rushed over, her heart pounding with concern. She skidded to a halt at the sight of porridge cascading like a waterfall from Barnaby's house, the once quiet street transformed into a creamy mess. With a calm smile, she approached the frantic man, who was now covered in a thick layer of gruel, and simply said, "Stop, little pot." At once, the pot ceased its cooking, falling silent as the last remnants of porridge dribbled to a halt. Barnaby, humiliated and humbled, looked at Ilara, realization dawning on him like the morning sun breaking through the clouds. He returned the pot, his heart heavy with regret, understanding at last that greed led him only to sticky trouble. In a beautiful act of community, Alara gathered the villagers, and together they feasted on the massive pile of sweet porridge, laughter mingling with the scent of cinnamon once more. The taste of kindness lingered in the air, a reminder that sharing brought joy far greater than greed ever could.
Shake it off and step up. One afternoon, a terrible accident struck a humble farm when the farmer's old donkey stumbled and tumbled right down into an abandoned well. The animal cried piteously, his distress echoing up the deep stone shaft for hours as the farmer paced back and forth, desperate to figure out what to do. Finally, he came to a hard decision. The donkey was old, and the well was obsolete and needed to be covered up anyway. It simply wasn't worth the immense effort and risk to retrieve the animal. The farmer called upon all his neighbors to come over and help him. They arrived, each grabbing a shovel, and began to scoop up earth and throw dirt into the well. At first, the donkey realized what was happening and let out a horrible, despairing cry. Then, to everyone's amazement, he quieted down. A few shovel loads later, the farmer finally looked down and was astonished at what he saw. With every shovel of dirt that fell on his back, the donkey was performing an incredible act of survival. He would shake it off and then take a step up onto the raised layer of earth. As the farmer's neighbors continued to shovel the earth on top of the animal, the donkey continued his work. Shake it off, take a step up. Pretty soon, everyone was cheering as the donkey stepped up easily over the edge of the well, gave a defiant snort, and trotted off into the afternoon sun. A little help from God. After a shipwreck, a man who was the last standing figured out how to arrive at the shore. He asked God for help. After waiting too long for God to answer his requests, he built himself a hut for his protection with destroyed bits of a shipwreck. Every day he invested a lot of energy searching for food and looking at the skyline for God's help. One day when he returned from his food search, he found his little hut burnt to ashes. Losing all hope, he felt helpless and shouted out of anger, "Why, God? Why do you never answer my prayers?" After a couple of hours, a boat arrived at the shore for his rescue. The man asked the captain of the ship, "How could you track me down?" The captain of the ship answered, "We saw your smoke signal for help." The man's faith in God's will was reestablished. The fox and the grapes. A hungry fox once looked everywhere for food. He couldn't find anything until he stumbled upon a farmer's wall. He saw big, purple, juicy grapes. He jumped as high as possible to reach the grapes. No matter how many times he tried, he failed. Finally, he gave up and went home, thinking to himself that the grapes must have been sour anyway. Morale of the story: nothing comes easy. Do not hate what you can't have. The needle tree. There were two brothers. The older one was always mean to the younger one. The older one would chop firewood in the forest and sell it in the market. One day, he stumbled across a magical tree. The tree begged him not to cut him down and promised him golden apples in exchange. The older brother felt disappointed with the number of apples he received. He decided to cut down the tree anyway, but the tree showered him with hundreds of needles. The boy was left lying on the forest ground in pain. His younger brother finally found him and carefully took out every needle. The older brother finally apologized for treating his brother badly. The magical tree saw this exchange. It decided to give them more golden apples. Moral of the story: kindness will always be rewarded. The four students. Four friends who hated studying partied all night before their exams. They asked the dean to give them a second chance by lying about their whereabouts. They told the dean they had gone to a wedding the night before, and on their way back they had a flat tire, requiring them to push the car all the way back. The dean agreed to let them take the test again. They studied hard for the exam. On the exam day, they were made to sit in separate classrooms and were given only two questions. 1. Your name. 2. Which tire of the car burst? A. Front left. B. Front right. C. Rear left. D. Rear right. Morale of the story: you may be smart, but there are smarter people than you. The wet pants. There was once a young boy in school. He had wet his pants and was scared that his class would make fun of him. He noticed that the teacher and a classmate were walking towards him with a goldfish bowl. The young girl trips and drops the fish bowl in his lap. The rest of the classmates think it is her fault for wetting his pants. Later, he asks her if she did that on purpose. She tells him, "I wet my pants once too." Moral: we all have good and bad days. Your true friends will help you out. The Rabbit and the Partridge. A partridge could not find food near its home, so it traveled far away to some cornfields. It stayed there for a few days before returning home. Meanwhile, a rabbit had found the empty nest and made itself at home. When the partridge returned, they both fought over whose house it was. The other animals suggested going to a judge. They found a praying cat by the river and decided to ask for help. Seeing how the cat was praying, they trusted it. The cat heard them both out but asked them to come closer as he couldn't hear well. When they got closer, the cat killed and ate them both. Moral: don't trust strangers no matter how friendly they seem. The Camel and the Baby. A baby camel once asked her mother why they had humps, round hooves, and long eyelashes. The mother explained that the humps could store water, the rounded hooves were to help them walk through the desert, and the long eyelashes protected their eyes from sand. The baby thought over this and then asked her mother if they have all these qualities for the desert. Why are they in a zoo? The mother was dumbfounded. Moral of the story: your strengths and skills are of no use in the wrong place. The Stork and the Crab. There once was an old stork who could not catch fish anymore. As he grew hungrier, he devised a plan. He told the fish in the tank that the farmers would soon empty out the tank and grow crops there. He offered to take the distressed fish to a bigger tank further away. The fish happily agreed, but the stork would take them to a rock and kill them. There was also a crab in the tank who wished to be saved. The stork, thinking he could try some new food, agreed to take him. However, the crab quickly noticed the fish bones on the rock. He immediately dug his claws into the stork's neck and killed him. He then went back to the old tank and informed the other fish. The Nail in the Fence. There was a young boy who could not control his anger. He would say whatever came to his mind, even if it hurts people. His father asked him to hammer in a nail in the backyard fence whenever he got angry. In the beginning, he used up a lot of nails. But as time went by, he started using less. The father then asked him to start removing a nail each day. He didn't get angry. When he removed all the nails, the father asked him to see the holes in the fence. He reminded him that the fence would never be the same. Likewise, the things he had said to people could never be erased. When adversity knocks. There once was a girl who was frustrated with life and asked her father for advice. He asked her to bring an egg, 2 tea leaves, and a potato. He then started boiling water in 3 separate vessels. He put the egg, potato, and tea leaves in 1 vessel each. After a few minutes, he asked her to peel the egg and potato and strain the leaves. He explained to his daughter that the soft egg was now hard. The hard potato was now soft. The tea had changed the water itself. When adversity is at our door, we can respond to it in different ways. A wise old owl. An old owl used to live on an oak tree. The owl used to observe the things happening around him. One day he saw a small boy help an old man carry a heavy basket. Another day, he saw a little girl who was shouting at her mother. As he started to notice things, he became quieter. As the day passed, he became even more quiet and started to listen more. The owl kept hearing stories and conversations of other people. He heard a story of an elephant who jumped the fence and a conversation where the man was saying that he never made any mistakes in his life. The old owl saw what happened to the people and heard what they were talking about. In his life, he witnessed how some people changed for the better and some for the worse. By observing other people, the owl in the oak tree became wiser with each passing day. The Farmer and the Well. In a village known for its sun-baked fields, there lived a simple farmer whose farm desperately needed a reliable source of water. Farmer bought a well from his cunning neighbor. The next day, when the farmer went to draw water, the neighbor stopped him. "I sold you the well," the neighbor insisted, "but the water inside is still mine." Distressed, the farmer took his case to the emperor. The emperor tasked Birbal to resolve the riddle. Birbal questioned the neighbor, who smugly confirmed, "I sold the well, but not the water." Birbal smiled. "Very well. If the well belongs to the farmer and the water belongs to you, then you are using the farmer's private well for storage." He continued, "You must now either remove your water immediately or begin paying the farmer rent to keep your property in his well." The neighbor, realizing his trick had failed completely, immediately apologized to the farmer and hurried away. defeated by Birbal's simple, brilliant logic.
The pencil and the eraser. The pencil and eraser were best friends. Pencil loved to write, and the eraser always quietly corrected the pencil whenever it made a mistake. One day, the pencil regretfully said, "You get smaller each day because of me." The eraser smiled and replied, "I don't mind. I was made to help you whenever you make a mistake."
In the quiet village of Willowbrook, where the gentle hum of nature painted the backdrop of everyday life, there lived a young milkmaid named Molly. The sun kissed the fields with golden light, illuminating the rich green grass where her beloved cows grazed peacefully. Molly's hands were calloused yet tender, accustomed to the rhythm of milking, but her heart danced with dreams far beyond the confines of her simple existence. Each morning, as she filled her pail with fresh, creamy milk, she let her imagination soar, weaving visions of all the treasures she would one day acquire. On a bright Tuesday, with the scent of morning dew still lingering in the air, Molly set off for the market. The path was a tapestry of wildflowers, each step igniting the sweet fragrance that enveloped her like a warm embrace. As she walked, her mind drifted to the possibilities that lay ahead. Perhaps a fine chicken to lay golden eggs, she mused, picturing the plump bird clucking happily in her yard. In her daydream, she envisioned herself standing tall among the other milkmaids, their eyes green with envy as they watched her thrive, her pockets heavy with coins from both milk and eggs. But as she lost herself in this reverie, excitement bubbled within her. She stumbled over a small stone hidden in the tall grass, and before she knew it, the pail slipped from her grasp. The cool, white liquid cascaded across the ground, glistening like pearls in the sunlight, soaking into the earth, and leaving behind only a puddle of regret. Molly stood frozen, a wave of disbelief washing over her as she stared at the empty pail. The dreams that had once felt so tangible now slipped through her fingers, like the milk she had just lost. With a heavy heart, she trudged home, the weight of her empty pail heavier than any burden she had carried before. Her mother, seated by the hearth, looked up with concern as Molly entered, her eyes filled with unshed tears. "What happened, dear?" she asked, her voice warm yet laced with curiosity. Molly confessed her dreamy folly, recounting her daydream of the chicken and the envy of other milkmaids. Her mother listened intently, her expression shifting from concern to maternal understanding. "Oh, my sweet girl, do not count your chickens before they hatch," she advised gently, placing a comforting hand on Molly's shoulder. "Dreams are beautiful, but they must be grounded in reality. It is the hard work we put in that brings true rewards, not the fantasies we weave." Molly nodded, the warmth of her mother's words wrapping around her like a soft blanket. She learned in that moment that while dreams were vital, they must be tempered with practicality and patience. With renewed resolve, she decided that instead of dwelling on what could have been, she would approach her work with a fresh perspective, focusing on the milk she could still provide, and perhaps, in time, find a way to fulfill her dream of a chicken. And so, with her mother's wisdom echoing in her heart, Molly returned to her daily toil, the sun setting behind her, illuminating her path forward with the hope of a new day.
The rose and the cactus. In the hot desert, a beautiful, arrogant rose constantly mocked a quiet, spiky cactus for its ugly appearance. The rose was too full of herself to listen to any warnings. When the brutal summer arrived, the desert ran out of water. The once luscious rose quickly began to wither and lose all her beauty. Desperate, she watched a bird peck the silent cactus for a life-saving drink. Ashamed, the rose admitted her wrongdoings and pleaded with the cactus for water. Without hesitation, the cactus agreed. It shared its stored moisture throughout the summer, saving the rose's life and teaching her the true meaning of friendship.
Tilly the Turtle's greatest race. Tilly the Turtle was always the slowest in the forest. When she raced Buster the Bunny and Felix the Fox, she was always last, trudging along while they sprinted ahead. But one day, their race was blocked by a huge, unexpected river. The fast animals, afraid of the water, stopped short. They had speed, but they lacked one key strength. Tilly, however, didn't hesitate. She smiled, dove into the river, and used her strong paddling legs to swim steadily across the turbulent water. She wasn't the fastest runner, but by utilizing her unique skill and never giving up, Tilly reached the finish line first. Her steady persistence won the race.
The Magic Window. A young boy, severely ill and confined to bed, was deeply unhappy because he couldn't interact with others. His only view was the outside world through his window. One day, his despair ended when he saw a bizarre sight: a penguin eating a sausage sandwich. This was followed by a hilarious parade of characters, including a monkey in a nappy and a pig playing a tambourine, all performing outside his window. The crazy antics made the boy laugh uncontrollably, and the sudden joy helped improve his health significantly. When he finally returned to school, he recounted the strange events to his best friend. Noticing something odd poking out of the friend's school bag, he insisted on seeing it. The friend reluctantly revealed the contents, all the fancy dress costumes he had used to cheer the boy up. The boy realized his friend's kindness and, from that day forward, vowed to always do his best to ensure no one felt sad and alone. The Golden Touch. King Midas was a rich man consumed by greed, believing that if he had the power to turn everything to gold, he would be the happiest man alive. A wish god granted his foolish request, gifting him the Golden Touch. That afternoon, Midas picked an apple, and it instantly transformed into gleaming gold. Overwhelmed with joy, he rushed inside. His little daughter, Marigold, ran to greet him. In his haste and glee, Midas swept her up into his arms. Instantly, his joy turned to terror. Marigold had become a silent, cold statue of gold. Midas fell to his knees, shedding bitter tears. He realized that his wealth was meaningless compared to his daughter. In profound despair, he prayed to the god to take away the curse. The wish god heard the king's sincere prayer and lifted the Golden Touch. Midas joyfully embraced Marigold, who instantly returned to life. Having learned a painful and vital lesson, King Midas finally gave up his greed and grew wise, understanding that true happiness lies in love, not gold. Coco the Puppy. One cold, rainy day in the bustling market, a little puppy named Coco got lost. Wet and terrified, he hid behind a shop, shivering uncontrollably. A kind boy noticed the tiny, scared puppy. He gently offered Coco some biscuits and immediately brought the puppy home to his warm, safe house. Determined to find the owners, the boy made and posted signs with Coco's picture all around the neighborhood. Just 2 days later, an overjoyed family spotted a poster. It was Coco's family. The reunion was full of happy tears and gratitude for the kind boy. Coco was finally home, and he and the boy became the very best of friends, promising to visit each other often. The Tale of the Generous Harvest. In a quiet valley, nestled between rolling green hills, lived a farmer named Elias. His hands were rough from a lifetime of toil, and his land was honest but unforgiving. One blustery autumn afternoon, as Elias guided his plow through the dark earth, his eye caught a flash of bright, unnatural color in the newly turned soil. He stopped, brushed aside the damp clumps of dirt, and revealed a single, perfect gold coin. It was old and heavy, bearing the stamp of a king long forgotten. Elias held it up, letting the weak sun catch its gleam. He hadn't seen gold like this in years. It was enough to mend the roof, or perhaps buy his wife the thick woolen shawl she'd long needed. He tucked it deep into the pocket of his overalls, a warm, secret comfort. The following morning dawned gray and cold, promising an early winter. Just as Elias was finishing his breakfast of stale bread, a weary rapping came at his door. Standing on the stoop was a traveler, his clothes threadbare, his face drawn tight with cold and exhaustion. "Pardon my intrusion, good farmer," the traveler croaked, his voice raw. "I am many miles from my home, and I have nothing left. I need passage south before the first snow blocks the roads, but I lack the means to secure it." "Can you spare anything?" Elias looked at the man shaking hands, and then felt the hard, familiar shape of the gold coin in his pocket. He thought of the shawl, the roof repair, the long-held dream of comfort. But then he saw the desperate hunger in the man's eyes, a need far more immediate than his own. Without a moment of hesitation, Elias pulled out the coin. It shined dull in the morning gloom, and pressed it into the traveler's hand. "Take this, friend," Elias said simply, his voice firm. "You'll need it far more than I do. Safe travels." The traveler's mouth dropped open in shock, then curved into a grateful, weak smile. He stammered his thanks, bowed low, and hurried away, clutching the impossible gift. That evening, Elias sat by his meager fire, content but quiet. He had given up his windfall, and the roof was still leaking, but his heart felt light. Just as the embers began to fade, a shadow fell across his window. He opened the door to find no one. Instead, lying perfectly centered on his worn wooden doorstep was a small, heavy sack. Elias picked it up and untied the string. Inside, 10 more gold coins gleamed under the starlight, a magnificent fortune. Elias recognized the leather of the pouch. It belonged to the traveler. He lifted the coins, feeling the surprising, satisfying weight in his hand, and a wide, genuine smile spread across his tired face. He understood then. The true harvest was not gathered from the ground, but from the spirit. Generosity is the seed that always returns to you, often in abundance, and always in the most unexpected ways. The Fable of the Lion and the Clever Rabbit. This is a classic fable passed down through generations, a cautionary tale that teaches us the timeless moral: wit triumphs over brute strength. In a dense, sprawling forest, there once reigned a powerful lion. To prevent the inevitable overhunting that would destroy the ecosystem, the other animals struck a desperate bargain. They would send him a single animal each day to satisfy his hunger. One day, it was the turn of a small but extremely clever rabbit. Knowing his fate, the rabbit used his slow journey to devise a cunning plan. He deliberately arrived late at the lion's den. The lion, already hungry and enraged by the delay, let out a terrifying roar. The rabbit, acting frantic, explained his lateness. "Your Majesty, I was stopped by a stronger, more powerful lion, who claims he is the true ruler of this forest." The lion's pride was wounded instantly. Furious at the thought of a rival, he demanded, "Take me to this impudent usurper at once." The rabbit calmly led the raging king of the beasts to an old, deep well filled with water. "He lives down there, sire," the rabbit whispered, pointing. The lion leaned over the edge and peered into the darkness. Seeing his own fierce reflection in the water, complete with a menacing mane and teeth, he immediately concluded it was the rival lion staring back at him. Consumed by anger, and without a moment's thought, he let out one final roar and leaped into the well to destroy his perceived competitor. Thus, the powerful lion, defeated not by force but by his own blind fury, drowned. The forest was saved by the quick thinking and simple trickery of the smallest of its inhabitants, proving that cleverness is the greatest power of all. The Two Friends and the Bear. Once upon a time, two friends found themselves journeying through a dense, emerald jungle. Sunlight dappled through the canopy, painting shifting patterns on their path as they walked. Suddenly, a massive brown bear emerged from the undergrowth, lumbering towards them with surprising speed. Panic seized their hearts. In a flash, one friend, consumed by fear, scrambled up the nearest sturdy tree, leaving his companion alone on the jungle floor. The other friend, quick-witted and desperate, remembered an old tale. He immediately dropped to the ground and pretended to be dead, holding his breath, hoping the bear would lose interest. The great bear approached cautiously, sniffing around the motionless man. It nudged him, then snorted, and after a moment turned and ambled back into the depths of the forest, disappearing from sight. Once the danger had truly passed, the friend in the tree cautiously descended. He rushed over to his companion, filled with curiosity and a touch of shame. "What did the bear tell you?" he asked, eager to know what secrets the beast might have whispered. The friend on the ground slowly rose, looking his friend directly in the eye, and replied, with a profound look, "The bear warned me to beware of fake friends." The Talking Birds. Once upon a time, nestled deep within a vibrant green forest, lived a happy family of birds, 2 chirpy youngsters and their wise parents. These weren't just any birds. They were special, for they could speak. One sunny day, while the parents were out foraging, a cunning villager who had long observed these extraordinary creatures stealthily approached their nest. With a swift movement, he managed to ensnare both young birds in his trap and carried them away. But as he journeyed through the dense woods, one of the birds, with a burst of desperate energy, managed to slip free from the villager's grasp. Fluttering away, it desperately searched for its parents, its little heart pounding with fear and hope. After a long and arduous flight, the bird, exhausted but relieved, stumbled upon a peaceful hermitage. There, it was met with a warm welcome and offered delicious food. Finding solace and kindness, the bird settled into its new home and lived joyfully, learning gentle ways from the kind hermit. Meanwhile, the other bird remained captive with the villager. Its new companion was rough and harsh, and soon the bird began to mimic the villager's coarse manners and rude speech. Sometime later, an adventurous explorer, wandering through the forest, chanced upon the villager and his caged talking bird. The bird, influenced by its captor, spoke to the explorer in a very ill-mannered way. The explorer was utterly astonished to hear a bird speak, but his amazement quickly turned to anger at the bird's disrespectful demeanor. Curiosity leading him onward, the explorer soon found himself at the hermitage. To his surprise, he discovered another talking bird, remarkably similar to the one he had just encountered. However, this bird greeted him with utmost respect and offered him a warm welcome, inviting him to stay as long as he wished. The explorer couldn't help but notice the stark difference in their behavior. The mark of friendship. In a lush, sun-dappled forest, 2 friends embarked on a peaceful walk, their laughter echoing among the trees. But as the path unwound before them, a shadow fell over their camaraderie, and a heated argument erupted. In a moment of anger, one friend's hand met the other's cheek with a sharp sting. The recipient of the slap, his heart aching with hurt, uttered not a single word. Instead, he knelt quietly in the sandy path and, with a finger carefully inscribed, "Today, my best friend slapped me." He then rose, and they continued their journey in silence. Their walk eventually led them to the tranquil edge of a shimmering lake. As they stood by the water's embrace, the friend who had been slapped stumbled, losing his footing, and tumbled into the cool depths. Without a moment's hesitation, the other friend, the one who had caused the earlier pain, plunged into the lake and pulled him to safety. Once recovered and safe on shore, the rescued friend reached for a nearby stone. With deliberate care, he etched into its surface, "Today, my best friend saved my life." His rescuer, puzzled by the contrasting gestures, asked, "Why did you write my hurtful action in the sand, but this act of saving in stone?" The rescued friend looked at him with a gentle smile and replied, "When a friend hurts us, we should write it off in sand, so that the winds of forgiveness can easily erase it. But when a friend does something good for us, we should engrave it in stone, so that it will forever remain, never to be forgotten."
The Fisherman and His Wife. Once upon a time, a poor fisherman lived by the sea with his wife in a humble hovel. Each day, he would fish. One day, he caught a magical flounder who claimed to be an enchanted prince. The fisherman, touched by its plea, released it back into the sea. When he returned home without any fish, his wife was dismayed. "Didn't you ask for anything?" she questioned, upon hearing about the talking flounder. The fisherman, having asked for nothing, was then urged by his greedy wife to wish for a small cottage. Reluctantly, he returned to the sea and called out, "Flounder, flounder, in the sea, pray, listen to me. My wife Ilsebil, will have whatever I wish, and say." The flounder granted the wish, and upon his return, a beautiful cottage stood where their hovel once was. However, his wife's greed grew. Soon, she demanded a grand palace. Again, the fisherman went to the sea and repeated the rhyme. The flounder fulfilled this wish too. Not content with being a simple queen, she then desired to be a king of the land. The fisherman, though hesitant, returned to the sea at her insistence. The flounder, once more, granted her wish for power. Her greed knew no bounds. She became empress, then pope, each wish granted by the obliging flounder. Yet, with every fulfilled desire, she grew more restless and dissatisfied. One morning she declared her ultimate wish, to become God and control the sun's movement. The fisherman fell to his knees, begging her to be content, but she kicked him in a rage, demanding he go to the flounder immediately. With a heavy heart, he returned to the sea and called out the familiar rhyme. The flounder asked what his wife desired now. She wants to be God, the fisherman replied. The flounder, with a sigh, simply said, "Go home." She is sitting in her filthy hovel again. And so, their extravagant wishes vanished, leaving them exactly where they began, in their old, humble hovel, a consequence of unchecked greed.
The Blind Man's Lamp. Once upon a time, there lived an old man who was blind. However, even though he couldn't see, he would always carry a lighted lamp with him whenever he went outside in the dark. Others would often see the old man and wonder to themselves, but no one said anything to him. One day, as the old man was walking in the streets, a group of young travelers saw him. They were surprised to see an old, blind man carrying a lamp with him. Without thinking any further, those travelers started making fun of the old man. As the travelers are making fun of the man, one of them says, "Hey, old man, you are blind and cannot see. Why are you carrying a lighted lamp then?" "It is of no use to you." The man said nothing, as they kept on making fun of him by saying mean things. However, after some time, the man said, "This lamp is not for me, but for others who can see." The travelers were shocked to hear the response of the old man, but they couldn't understand what he meant. Upon asking, the old man replied, "The lamp is for people like you, who have eyes. In the dark, you might not see me, a blind man, and push me. So, when you look at the lamp, you will know that someone is near you, so that you can mind your way without pushing me." The young travelers finally understood the reason behind the old man carrying the lamp. They were very ashamed of their behavior and apologized to the old man. The Race of the Opposite Twins. Sam and Tom were identical twins, so much so that even their mother couldn't tell them apart at a glance. Yet, while their faces were mirrors, their souls were opposites. Sam was quiet, steady, and shared freely. Tom was loud, ambitious, and a relentless hoarder of everything he acquired. When their father decided to divide his vast fortune, Tom immediately objected. "The greater share should go to the one who proves himself more intelligent and stronger," he declared. Sam agreed. Their father set the challenge. "Each of you will walk as far as possible from home and return before the sun sets. The one who covers the greatest distance and successfully returns wins." They were forbidden from tracking time. The next day, under the bright sun, the race began. Tom, eager to win the fortune, sprinted ahead down the road. Sam, however, knew the critical secret. The time spent walking out had to equal the time spent walking back. The only way to guarantee his return before sunset was to turn around precisely at midday. Sam walked slowly but steadily, and when the sun reached its zenith, he turned around and started his comfortable, predictable journey home. Tom, blinded by the distance he was gaining, walked for twice as long as Sam had. He pushed himself far into the afternoon, certain his speed would make up the difference. It was not until the sun turned a fiery orange that Tom finally realized the peril he was in. He spun around and started running, but his legs were leaden from the miles walked. Before he could reach even the halfway point of his return journey, the sun dipped below the horizon and darkness swallowed his path. With a heavy, defeated heart, Tom turned back. His greed had led him far, but his lack of strategy meant he never conquered the distance. Sam, whose steady pace and clear thinking brought him home with time to spare, was declared the undisputed winner. The bitter cucumber. A rich man lived in constant bitterness, always cursing God for his minor troubles despite his immense wealth. He employed a kind, devoted servant whom he treated well. One day, the rich man tasted a violently bitter cucumber. Enraged, he blamed his fate and ordered the servant to eat the rest. The servant took the cucumber and ate it slowly, with visible joy. Astonished, the rich man demanded, "How can you eat that? It is vile." The servant smiled and replied, "Master, from your hand, I have received delicious, sweet food every single day. If today you give me one thing that is bitter, I would be ungrateful to refuse it. I accept this with joy, remembering the countless kind gifts." The rich man was instantly humbled. He realized that if his servant could accept occasional bitterness from him, he too should stop cursing the occasional hardship he faced, remembering the lifetime of blessings he had received from God. From that day on, he learned the profound peace of gratitude. Be good to your enemies. Once upon a time, there was a good little boy named Sammy. He was amazing at everything. He always got excellent grades in school, listened to his parents, and was kind to everyone he met. All the grown-ups just adored Sammy. Because of how wonderful he was, some of the other boys felt a little jealous. One boy in particular, named Timmy, who was in the same class as Sammy, was extremely jealous. Timmy loved to play all the time, didn't always behave with his parents, and struggled in school. He would often insult Sammy in front of their classmates, but Sammy never let it bother him. When Sammy turned 8, his parents gave him a beautiful pen as a gift. Sammy brought his new pen to school to use for notes because it wrote so smoothly. Timmy saw the pen and immediately made a plan to steal it. During lunchtime, while Sammy was out of the classroom, Timmy quietly took the pen from Sammy's bag. When Sammy returned and realized his special pen was missing, he told their class teacher. A search for the pen began, and the class monitor carefully looked through everyone's bags. Finally, the pen was found in Timmy's bag. Timmy started to cry when his actions were revealed. Sammy, seeing Timmy so upset, felt bad for him. He asked the teacher not to punish Timmy, saying that all he wanted was to get his pen back, not to see anyone get into trouble. Timmy was so touched by Sammy's kindness. From that day on, they became the best of friends, and both Sammy and Timmy were loved by everyone. Laughter is the best medicine. Once upon a time, in a land far away, there lived a king who was known throughout his kingdom for his perpetual grumpiness. A smile never touched his lips, and a laugh never escaped his throat. Not only did he himself never laugh, but he had also forbidden anyone else in his kingdom from doing so. The sound of joy was a stranger to his halls. One sunny afternoon, a small boy, full of life and mirth, was playing in the village square when something so utterly funny happened that he simply couldn't control himself. A giggle escaped, then another, and soon he was bursting with uncontrollable laughter. Suddenly, a wave of fear washed over him. He remembered the king's strict decree. What if he was caught? What would the punishment be? But the clever boy, though small, had a quick mind. He thought, and then a brilliant plan began to form. He decided to write a story, a truly hilarious one, and then turn it into a play. With his plan in place, the boy bravely made his way to the royal palace. He approached the king, bowing respectfully. "Your Majesty," he began, "may I have the honor of presenting a drama for you?" The grumpy king, always looking for a distraction, even if he wouldn't admit it, surprisingly agreed to let him perform. The boy, with a twinkle in his eye, began his play. He acted out the various parts of his funny story, captivating the court with his energy and wit. As the drama unfolded, the boy skillfully led the audience through twists and turns, building up to the grand finale, the funniest part of his tale. And then, it happened. A sound that hadn't been heard in the palace for years. A deep rumble that turned into a hearty chuckle. Then a full-blown roar of laughter. The king himself was laughing. Everyone in the court was absolutely amazed. They had never seen their king laugh before. His face, usually set in a stern frown, was now bright with genuine amusement. From that day forward, the grumpy king was no more. He realized the joy that laughter brought and immediately revoked his old decree. He allowed, and even encouraged, everyone in the kingdom to laugh freely. And so, the kingdom was filled with happiness and cheer, and everyone, including the once grumpy king, lived happily ever after, understanding that laughter truly is the best medicine. Doubt drowns. Faith saves. Once, a teacher had a disciple who lived in a hermitage. One day, the disciple set out on a journey. He hadn't gone far when it suddenly started raining heavily. As he turned back, he noticed a stray cat and dog running for cover. He returned to the hermitage and told his teacher about the problem of the unexpected rain. The teacher smiled and said, "You must have faith in God. He will save you from all problems and obstacles." The disciple obeyed. He immediately resumed his journey, reciting the name of God all the way, and was able to clear all the hurdles without issue. The next day, the teacher himself had to take the same route. When he reached a deep, flooded drain, he hesitated. He was seized by doubt, wondering if God would truly save him. Because of his hesitation, the teacher drowned in the surging water. Thus, the lesson is clear. Doubt drowns you, but faith saves you. Never be ungrateful. It was high summer. The sun was extremely hot. Two travelers were going along a dusty road that had no trees along its sides. Looking for some shelter from the hot sun, they saw a tree with big leaves and branches spread like an umbrella. They placed their belongings on the ground and sat in the cool, thick shade of the tree. After taking some rest, one traveler said to the other, "What a useless tree it is! It bears no fruits at all." Hearing this, the tree felt pinched and burst out. "You ungrateful soul! On one hand, you are taking shelter in my cool shade from the burning heat of the sun, and on the other hand, you are calling me useless. Get up and leave the place immediately, to be scorched again." The Praying Hands. Back in the 15th century, in a tiny village near Nuremberg, lived a family with 18 children. In order merely to keep food on the table for this mob, the father and head of the household, a goldsmith by profession, worked almost 18 hours a day at his trade and any other paying chore he could find in the neighborhood. Despite their seemingly hopeless condition, two of Albrecht Dürer the Elder's children had a dream. They both wanted to pursue their talent for art, but they knew full well that their father would never be financially able to send either of them to Nuremberg to study at the academy. After many long discussions at night in their crowded bed, the two boys finally worked out a pact. They would toss a coin. The loser would go down into the nearby mines and, with his earnings, support his brother while he attended the academy. Then, when that brother who won the toss completed his studies, in 4 years, he would support the other brother at the academy, either with sales of his artwork or, if necessary, also by laboring in the mines. They tossed a coin on a Sunday morning after church. Albrecht Dürer won the toss and went off to Nuremberg. Albert went down into the dangerous mines and, for the next 4 years, financed his brother, whose work at the academy was almost an immediate sensation. Albrecht's etchings, his woodcuts, and his oils were far better than those of most of his professors, and by the time he graduated, he was beginning to earn considerable fees for his commissioned works. When the young artist returned to his village, the Dürer family held a festive dinner on their lawn to celebrate Albrecht's triumphant homecoming. After a long and memorable meal, punctuated with music and laughter, Albrecht rose from his honored position at the head of the table to drink a toast to his beloved brother for the years of sacrifice that had enabled Albrecht to fulfill his ambition. His closing words were, "And now, Albert, blessed brother of mine, now it is your turn. Now you can go to Nuremberg to pursue your dream, and I will take care of you." All heads turned in eager expectation to the far end of the table where Albert sat, tears streaming down his pale face. Shaking his lowered head from side to side while he sobbed and repeated, over and over, "No, no, no, no." Finally, Albert rose and wiped the tears from his cheeks. He glanced down the long table at the faces he loved, and then, holding his hands close to his right cheek, he said softly, "No, brother. I cannot go to Nuremberg. It is too late for me. Looks what 4 years in the mines have done to my hands. The bones in every finger have been smashed at least once. And lately I've been suffering from arthritis so badly in my right hand that I cannot even hold a glass to return your toast, much less make delicate lines on parchment or canvas with a pen or a brush. No, brother, for me it is too late. More than 450 years have passed. By now, Albrecht Dürer's hundreds of masterful portraits, pen and silver point sketches, watercolors, charcoals, woodcuts, and copper engravings hang in every great museum in the world. But the odds are great that you, like most people, are familiar with only one of Albrecht Dürer's works. More than merely being familiar with it, you very well may have a reproduction hanging in your home or office. One day, to pay homage to Albert for all that he had sacrificed, Albrecht Dürer painstakingly drew his brother's abused hands with palms together and thin fingers stretched skyward. He called his powerful drawing simply hands, but the entire world almost immediately opened their hearts to his great masterpiece and renamed his tribute of love, the Praying Hands. The next time you see a copy of that touching creation, take a second look. Let it be your reminder, if you still need one, that no one ever makes it alone. Remember, it is not the burdens of life that weigh us down, it is how we handle them. Keep your eyes open. Once upon a time, there was a lion that grew so old that he was unable to kill any prey for his food. So, he said to himself, I must do something to stay my stomach, else I will die of starvation. He kept thinking, and at last an idea clicked him. He decided to lie down in the cave pretending to be ill, and then whosoever will come to inquire about his health will become his prey. The old lion put his wicked plan into practice, and it started working. Many of his well-wishers got killed, but evil is short-lived. One day, a fox came to visit the ailing lion. As foxes are clever by nature, the fox stood at the mouth of the cave and looked about. His sixth sense worked, and he came to know the reality. So, he called out to the lion from outside and said, "How are you, sir?" The lion replied, "I am not feeling well at all, but why don't you come inside?" Then the fox replied, "I would love to come in, sir, but on seeing all footprints going to your cave and none coming out, I would be foolish enough to come in." Saying so, the fox went to alert the other animals.
Birbal the Wise. One day, a rich merchant came to Birbal. He said to Birbal, "I have 7 servants in my dod. One of them has stolen my bag of precious pearls. Please find out the thief." So Birbal went to the rich man's house. He called all the 7 servants in a room. He gave a stick to each one of them. Then he said, "These are magic sticks. Just now, all these sticks are equal in length. Keep them with you and return tomorrow. If there is a thief in the house, his stick will grow an inch longer by tomorrow." The servant who had stolen the bag of pearls was scared. He thought, "If I cut a piece of 1 inch from my stick, I won't be caught." So he cut the stick and made it shorter by 1 inch. The next day, Birbal collected the sticks from the servants. He found that one servant's stick was short by 1 inch. Birbal pointed his finger at him and said, "Here is the thief." The servant confessed to his crime. He returned the bag of pearls. He was sent to jail. The farmer and his sons. A farmer had 5 sons. They were strong and hard-working, but they always quarreled with one another. Sometimes they even fought. The farmer wanted his sons to stop quarreling and fighting. He wanted them to live in peace. Plain words of advice or scolding did not have much effect on these young people. The farmer always thought what to do to keep his sons united. One day he found an answer to the problem. So he called all his sons together. He showed them a bundle of sticks and said, "I want any of you to break these sticks without separating them from the bundle." Each of the 5 sons tried one by one. They used their full strength and skill, but none of them could break the sticks. Then the old man separated the sticks and gave each of them just a single stick to break. They broke the sticks easily. The farmer said, "A single stick by itself is weak. It is strong as long as it is tied up in a bundle. Likewise, you will be strong if you are united. You will be weak if you are divided. As you sow, so shall you reap." One night, 3 thieves stole a lot of money from a rich man's house. They put the money in a bag and went to the forest. As the hours passed, they felt very hungry. So, one of them decided to go to a nearby village to buy food, while the other 2 remained in the forest to guard the bag of money. The thief who went for food harbored an evil idea. He ate his own meal at a hotel. Then, before returning to his mates in the forest, he bought food for them and secretly mixed a strong poison with it. He thought to himself, "Those 2 will eat this poisoned food and die. Then I will get all the money for myself." Meanwhile, back in the forest, the 2 wicked men who were waiting also hatched a cruel plan. They decided that they would kill their mate as soon as he returned. Their thought was to divide all the stolen money between just the 2 of them. All 3 wicked men carried out their cruel plans. The thief, who wanted all the money for himself, eventually returned to the forest, carrying the poisoned food. The 2 men waiting in the forest immediately attacked him, hitting him and killing him. Believing they had outsmarted him, they then sat down and ate the very food he had brought, unknowingly consuming the poison. Soon after, they too died. Thus, these evil people, consumed by greed and treachery, met with an evil end, proving the old saying, "As you sow, so shall you reap."
The Dog and the Bone. This is the story of a dog who lost what he had because he was greedy for more. One sunny afternoon, a dog found a magnificent bone. It was large and meaty, and he trotted happily along, holding his prize tightly in his mouth. His path took him over a small wooden bridge that crossed a flowing river. As he looked down, he saw his own reflection in the clear, calm water. But in his mind, it wasn't a reflection at all. He saw another dog. And that other dog, he thought, had a bone that looked even bigger than his own. The dog immediately became consumed with a foolish greed. He wanted that bone too. He opened his mouth wide to bark fiercely at the dog in the water, hoping to frighten it into dropping its bone. But as he did, his own bone slipped from his jaws. It fell into the deep river and quickly sank out of sight. The water was still. There was no other dog and no other bone. He was left with nothing but the empty water, realizing his foolish mistake.
The Villager and the Spectacles. There was a villager. He was illiterate. He did not know how to read and write. He often saw people wearing spectacles for reading books or papers. He thought, "If I have spectacles, I can also read like these people. I must go to town and buy a pair of spectacles for myself." So one day he went to a town. He entered a spectacle shop. He asked the shopkeeper for a pair of spectacles for reading. The shopkeeper gave him various pairs of spectacles and a book. The villager tried all the spectacles one by one, but he could not read anything. He told the shopkeeper that all those spectacles were useless for him. The shopkeeper gave him a doubtful look. Then he looked at the book. It was upside down. The shopkeeper said, "Perhaps you don't know how to read." The villager said, "No, I don't. I want to buy spectacles so that I can read like others, but I can't read with any of these spectacles." The shopkeeper controlled his laughter with great difficulty when he learnt the real problem of his illiterate customer. He explained to the villager, "My dear friend, you are very ignorant. Spectacles don't help to read or write. They only help you to see better. First of all, you must learn to read and to write." The wind and the sun. Once the wind and the sun had an argument. "I am stronger than you," said the wind. "No, you are not," said the Sunday. Just at that moment they saw a traveler walking across the road. He was wrapped in a shawl. The sun and the wind agreed that whoever could separate the traveler from his shawl was stronger. The wind took the first turn. He blew with all his might to tear the traveler's shawl from his shoulders. But the harder he blew, the tighter the traveler gripped the shawl to his body. The struggle went on till the wind's turn was over. Now it was the sun's turn. The sun smiled warmly. The traveler felt the warmth of the smiling Sunday. Soon he let the shawl fall open. The sun's smile grew warmer and warmer, hotter and hotter. Now the traveler no longer needed his shawl. He took it off and dropped it on the ground. The sun was declared stronger than the wind. The blind men and the elephant. This is known as the Syedvada Anakantvad, or the theory of manifold predictions. This story comes from ancient Indian folklore and has been retold in many languages and adapted to many cultures. For a more sophisticated version of this story, see John Godfrey Saxe's 1816-1887 poem, version of the famous Indian legend. Once upon a time, there lived 6 blind men in a village. One day the villagers told them, "Hey, there is an elephant in the village today." They had no idea what an elephant was. They decided, even though we would not be able to see it, let us go and feel it anyway. All of them went where the elephant was. Every one of them touched the elephant. "Hey, the elephant is a pillar," said the first man who touched his leg. "Oh no, it is like a rope," said the second man who touched the tail. "Oh no, it is like a thick branch of a tree," said the third man who touched the trunk of the elephant. "It is like a big hand fan," said the fourth man who touched the ear of the elephant. "It is like a huge wall," said the fifth man who touched the belly of the elephant. "It is like a solid pipe," said the sixth man who touched the tusk of the elephant. They began to argue about the elephant, and every one of them insisted that he was right. It looked like they were getting agitated. A wise man was passing by, and he saw this. He stopped and asked them, "What is the matter?" They said, "We cannot agree to what the elephant is like." Each one of them told what he thought the elephant was like. The wise man calmly explained to them, "All of you are right. The reason every one of you is telling it differently, because each one of you touched a different part of the elephant. So, actually the elephant has all those features, what you all said." "Oh," everyone said. There was no more fight. They felt happy that they were all right. The 3 little pigs. Once upon a time, there were 3 little pigs. The first little pig, being quite fond of taking it easy, quickly built his house out of straw. The second little pig, not wanting to spend too much time on construction either, built his house with sticks. Both of them finished their homes in a flash, and then spent their days singing and dancing, enjoying their free time. The third little pig, however, was a diligent and hard-working fellow. He knew the importance of a strong home, so he toiled all day long, carefully constructing his house out of sturdy bricks. One day, a big bad wolf, with a rumbling tummy and a cunning gleam in his eye, happened upon the 2 playful pigs. "What juicy, tender meals they will make," he thought to himself. He began to chase the 2 unsuspecting pigs, who squealed and scampered, quickly hiding in their flimsy homes. The big bad wolf went to the first house, the one made of straw. He took a deep breath, puffed out his cheeks, and with a mighty "hm," he blew the straw house down in mere minutes. The terrified little pig darted out and ran as fast as his trotters could carry him, seeking refuge in the second pig's house, which was made of sticks. But the big bad wolf was relentless. He followed close behind, and when he reached the stick house, he again took a huge breath, and he blew the stick house down in hardly any time at all. Now, the 2 little pigs were absolutely petrified. They knew they had only one hope, and they ran with all their might to the third pig's house, the one built of strong, reliable bricks. The big bad wolf, confident in his huffing and puffing abilities, tried his hardest to blow down the brick house. He huffed and he puffed, and he huffed and he puffed for hours, but the brick house stood firm and strong. The little pigs inside were safe and sound. Frustrated, the wolf decided on a new tactic. He would try to enter through the chimney, but the clever third little pig was one step ahead. He quickly boiled a huge pot of water and placed it right below the chimney. When the wolf slid down, He plunged right into the scalding water and, sadly, that was the end of the big bad wolf. With the wolf gone, the two lazy pigs felt a pang of regret for their earlier laziness. They realized the wisdom of their brother's hard work. So, they set about building new houses for themselves, strong and secure, just like the third pigs, made entirely of bricks. And from that day forward, the three little pigs lived happily ever after, safe in their sturdy homes. The puppy and the well. A mother dog warned her playful pups not to go near the old well. But one curious pup couldn't resist. He began to climb the stone wall of the well, his little paws scrambling for purchase. Reaching the top, the pup looked down into the water and saw his own reflection. Thinking it was another pup copying his actions, he started barking angrily at it. Getting angrier still, the pup barked louder, growling at the image in the water. In a fit of rage, the pup jumped into the well to confront his reflection, splashing into the cool water. Immediately, the pup realized his mistake as he began to sink, his eyes wide with fear and surprise. Luckily, a kind farmer heard the splashes. He quickly came over and began to lower a wooden bucket into the well. The farmer carefully pulled the rope, rescuing the wet and startled pup in the bucket. Safely back on the ground, the relieved pup, a little wiser from his adventure, shook himself dry. The miser and his gold. Once there lived a miser who was not willing to spend his gold coins, so he kept them hidden in a pit in his garden, covered with stones. Each day he would visit the pit and enjoy looking at his wealth. This was his daily habit. One day, a thief noticed his routine and sneaked into the pit to steal the coins. The next day, the miser found the pit empty. He yelled so loudly that a neighbor came over. The miser explained everything to him. The neighbor suggested that he could keep the money at home. The miser sadly replied that he never intended to spend them. The neighbor then remarked that he might as well have placed a stone in the pit to look at every day, since the unused gold was just as worthless.
The Cat, the Rooster, and the Mouse. Pip the Mouse was new to the old farmhouse. Every day was a lesson in survival, and his first task was to identify the greatest threats in his new home. He quickly focused on the two largest creatures in the kitchen and yard, the cat and the rooster. First, Pip observed the cat named Mrs. Snugglepaws. She was a picture of serenity. She moved with a silent, graceful step, kept her paws meticulously clean, and often lay curled up, seemingly asleep, on the sun-warmed porch. She was quiet, calm, and never raised her voice. What a gentle creature, Pip thought. She is clearly a friend who minds her own business. Next, Pip observed the rooster, a loud wild bird named General. The general was a terrifying sight. He had a crown of angry red skin, a sharp beak, and a coat of fierce, colorful feathers. Every morning, he would throw back his head and scream a chaotic, ear-splitting battle cry, "Cock-a-doodle-doo!" He spent his afternoons scratching violently at the dirt, seemingly tearing the earth apart with his sharp claws. Pip scurried back to his hole, trembling with certainty. "I have learned the truth, Father," he squeaked excitedly. "We must fear the rooster alone. He shouts, he wears his madness on his head, and he is noisy about his horrible intentions. The cat, however, is a model of decorum, quiet, clean, and thoughtful." His father, an old mouse with many scars, sighed deeply. "Ah, my son," he said, shaking his gray whiskers, "it is true that the rooster is loud. His noise is his warning, and his rage is directed at the dawn, not at us. He screams and flails, yet has never harmed a mouse. But the cat," the father continued, his voice dropping to a whisper, "the cat moves in silence. She hides her true nature in a soft, purring disguise, and her calm demeanor is merely the patience of a killer. Always be more wary of silent courtesy than loud threats, for the loudest warnings are often the least dangerous." And Pip, remembering that lesson, was never fooled by a purr again. This is a heartwarming story that beautifully illustrates the power of kindness and the concept of paying it forward. The Price of a Glass of Milk. The story centers on a determined young boy who tirelessly worked odd jobs to fund his education. He often faced long days with little to eat, One scorching afternoon, the boy felt an overwhelming, dizzying hunger. He decided to approach the nearest house and ask for a simple glass of water. A kind young girl answered his knock. When he asked for a drink, she immediately noticed his pale, exhausted look, and realizing he needed more than water, she offered him a large glass of milk instead. The boy drank it gratefully, feeling his strength return. He thanked her profusely, and though he tried to pay, she refused, simply saying, "My mother taught me never to accept pay for a kindness." Her generosity left a deep, lasting impression on him. Years passed. The boy, who had worked so hard, eventually graduated and became a renowned doctor. Meanwhile, the girl, now a grown woman, fell gravely ill with a rare disease. Local doctors were baffled and referred her to the city's top specialist for treatment. That specialist was the boy, Dr. Howard Kelly. Dr. Kelly immediately recognized her face from all those years ago. He took her case with fierce determination and oversaw her entire recovery process, ensuring she received the best care possible. After weeks of treatment, the woman was finally ready to leave the hospital. She was incredibly nervous about the large medical bills she knew she would face, fearing it would take her a lifetime to pay off. When the nurse presented the final statement, the woman braced herself, only to feel a rush of shock and disbelief. The total was zero. Scribbled at the bottom of the bill, in the doctor's familiar handwriting, was a simple, unforgettable note. Paid in full with one glass of milk. Hello, everyone. Let me tell you a classic story from ancient Greece. A tale about a king, a magical wish, and a very important lesson. It's called The Golden Touch, and it's all about King Midas. Now, King Midas loved gold more than anything. He lived in a grand palace, but he always wanted more. More. One day, something extraordinary happened. The god Dionysus, the god of wine and celebration, owed Midas a favor. So Dionysus appeared before the king and said, "Midas, I will grant you one wish. Anything your heart desires." Midas's eyes lit up. "Oh, glorious Dionysus," he exclaimed, "I wish that everything I touch turns into pure, sparkling gold." Dionysus looked a bit sad. "Are you sure, Midas? That's a dangerous wish." But Midas just insisted, thinking of all the riches. So with a sigh, Dionysus granted his wish. Oh, Midas was ecstatic. He rushed out of his palace, touching everything in sight. He touched a beautiful red rose and poof! It turned into a magnificent golden rose. He touched a tree branch and it became a shimmering golden stick. His gardens and palace quickly filled with glittering gold. "I'm the richest man in the world," he cheered, laughing with delight. Tourist begins. But soon Midas started to feel hungry. He sat down at his grand table, ready for a feast. He picked up a juicy apple, and zap! It became a solid golden apple, too hard to bite. He reached for a glass of cool water, but the moment his fingers touched it, the water turned into liquid gold, undrinkable. Panic began to set in. He was surrounded by wealth, but he couldn't eat. He couldn't drink. Heartbreak. Midas cried out in despair. His sweet little daughter, hearing his cries, ran to him, her eyes wide with concern. "Oh, Papa, what's wrong?" she asked, reaching out to him. Forgetting his terrible curse in his distress, Midas embraced his precious child. But as his arms wrapped around her, oh no! She instantly transformed, her soft skin becoming hard and cold, her eyes losing their sparkle. She was a beautiful but lifeless golden statue in his arms. Midas fell to his knees, utterly heartbroken. He finally understood. All the gold in the world was worthless compared to the love of his daughter, the joy of food, and the comfort of a simple touch. He looked up to the sky, tears streaming down his face. "Dionysus," he cried, "forgive my foolish greed. Take this dreadful gift from me. I want my daughter back. I want my life back." Dionysus, seeing Midas's true remorse, took pity on him. He told Midas to go to the river Pactolus and wash himself in its waters. Midas didn't hesitate. He rushed to the river and plunged into its refreshing current. As he washed, he felt the golden power flow out of him, and the river's sands began to shimmer with gold. When he returned, the curse was gone. He could touch things normally again. And oh, the greatest joy of all, his daughter was restored to life, running into his arms, warm and full of life once more. From that day forward, King Midas was a changed man. He no longer cared for endless gold. He learned that the true treasures in life are love, family, and the simple beauty of the world around us. And that, my friends, is the story of King Midas and the Golden Touch. The Monkey and the Crocodile. A kind monkey lived in a rose apple tree by a river. He became friends with a crocodile and regularly shared sweet rose apples with him and his wife across the river. The crocodile's wife grew jealous and wanted to eat the monkey's heart, believing it would be sweet from the fruit. She pretended to be very sick, claiming only a monkey's heart could save her. The foolish crocodile invited the monkey to his home, offering a ride on his back. In the middle of the river, the crocodile confessed his plan to kill the monkey for his heart. The quick-witted monkey stayed calm. He tricked the crocodile by saying, "My heart? Oh, I usually leave it behind in the tree. Turn back now and I'll fetch it for your wife." The stupid crocodile believed him and swam back to the tree. The monkey immediately jumped to safety. He looked down and called the crocodile the biggest fool in the world for being ready to betray a friend and then being tricked so easily. The Farmer and the Snake. Once upon a time, there was a farmer who was walking through his field when he came across a snake lying in the grass. The snake was injured and in pain, so the farmer took pity on it and picked it up to take it home and care for it. When the farmer got home, he placed the snake in a warm spot and gave it some food and water. The snake began to feel better and started to slither around. The farmer watched the snake with curiosity, amazed by the way it moved and the patterns on its skin. But as the farmer was watching the snake, it suddenly turned and bit him on the hand. The farmer was shocked and hurt, and he asked the snake why it had done such a thing. The snake replied, "You knew I was a snake when you picked me up. It is in my nature to strike when threatened, and I cannot change that." The farmer realized that the snake was right. He had taken a risk in helping the snake, knowing that it was a dangerous creature. He had hoped that by showing kindness and care, he could change the snake's nature. But he was wrong. The Honest Woodcutter. A hard-working woodcutter, known for his uncompromising honesty, lost his only axe in a clear lake, crushing his livelihood. Despairing, he was met by a shimmering water fairy. She dove down and returned, holding his own axe and a dazzling golden axe. "Is this your axe?" she asked, presenting the gold. Though tempted, the woodcutter replied honestly, "No, the golden axe is not mine." Moved by his integrity, the fairy rewarded his truthfulness by letting him keep both axes. News of his honesty spread. People sought him out, knowing he was completely reliable. The woodcutter's family prospered, his life a testament to the fact that honesty was his greatest fortune. The Young Crab and His Mother. A young crab and his mother were walking on the beach. The mother noticed her son was walking sideways and told him he should walk forward to be more proper. The son replied, "But mother, this is how you walk. This is how we are all made." The mother realized she'd been walking sideways her whole life. To set an example, she tried to walk forward, but immediately lost her balance and fell. She kept trying, but failed every time. Amused, the son said, "Mother, we are crabs. It's impossible for us to walk forward. We should be proud of how we are." The mother sighed, gave up, and realized her son was right. They happily continued their walk along the shore, side by side. The Elephant and Friends. Once upon a time, there was an elephant who wandered in a big forest. He was all alone and wanted to make friends. One day, when he was roaming around, he met a monkey. "Will you be my friend?" he asked the monkey. "You are too big to jump from tree to tree, branch to branch, and have fun with us." "So I can't be your friend?" said the monkey. The elephant then came across a rabbit and asked him to be his friend. The rabbit replied, "You are too big to fit in my small home." "You cannot be my friend," said the rabbit. The elephant then met a frog and asked him the same question. "You are so big and heavy, you won't be able to jump like me. So you can't be my friend." The elephant felt bad and started walking, and then he met a fox. He asked the fox, "Will you be my friend?" The fox replied that, "You are too big to be my friend." Disappointed, the elephant walked back home with no friends. The next day he woke up hearing loud screams. He got out of his bed and opened the front door, only to see all the animals running here and there in fear. The elephant stopped a monkey and asked what was happening, and he came to know that a tiger was attacking all the animals of the jungle, and they were running to save their lives. The elephant wanted to help the small animals and decided to go to the tiger. "Please, sir, don't kill my friends." "Leave them alone," the elephant urged. The tiger laughed and asked him to mind his own business. There was no way the tiger could be stopped, so the elephant kicked the tiger and scared him away. When all the animals of the forest learned how the elephant saved their lives, the animals agreed to be friends with him. The lion and the mouse. One sunny afternoon, a big, strong lion lay sleeping in the jungle. Along came a tiny mouse, scampering over sticks and leaves, and by accident, he ran across the lion's paw. The lion awoke with a loud roar and quickly caught the little mouse beneath his big paw. "Please, mighty lion, spare me," squeaked the mouse. "If you let me go, I promise to repay your kindness one day." The lion laughed, thinking, "How could this tiny creature ever help me?" But he was feeling generous, so he lifted his paw and let the mouse go free. A few days later, the lion was prowling the jungle when he was trapped in a hunter's net. He struggled and roared, but the ropes held tight. The mouse heard his roars and rushed to his aid. "Don't worry, dear lion. I'll help you." The mouse began gnawing through the ropes with his sharp little teeth, and before long the lion was free. The lion looked down at his tiny friend in amazement and gratitude. "Thank you, little mouse. I see now that even the smallest friend can make a big difference." And from that day on, the lion and the mouse were friends for life, proving to everyone that kindness is always returned in unexpected ways. The cows and the tiger. Once upon a time, there lived a cow on a small farm. She used to go grazing in the forest with her 3 other friends. They were good friends and did everything together. They grazed together and stayed together, because of which no tigers or lions were able to kill them for food. One day they went grazing, and they fought amongst themselves and decided to graze in 4 different directions. A tiger was lurking in the tall grass. When all 4 were fighting, he saw everything and decided to take advantage of the situation. As the cows started to move in different directions, the tiger waited until the 4 of them were apart from each other. And when they were far enough, the tiger killed them all one by one. Nobody would have posed a harm to these cows had they been together. The goose that laid the golden egg. Once upon a time, there was a farmer who possessed the most wonderful goose you could ever imagine. Every day when the farmer visited the nest, the goose had laid a beautiful, glittering, golden egg. The farmer took the eggs to the market and soon began to get rich. The farmer was getting richer and richer every day, but he began to become impatient. He was upset at the goose because she was yielding him only 1 golden egg per day. He was not getting rich fast enough. Then one day, after he had finished counting his money, he got an idea. He thought, "What if I kill the goose and get all the golden eggs all at once?" The next day, when he went to fetch the golden egg, he killed the goose. But he could not find any more golden eggs, and his precious goose was dead too. The ugly duckling. A little duckling was born looking very different from his siblings. His down was gray and clumsy, not bright yellow and fluffy like theirs. The other ducklings called him ugly and pointed at him in the river, making fun of his appearance. Feeling like he didn't belong, and his heart heavy with sadness, the little duckling ran away. He went deep into the fields and sought shelter in the forest, searching for a place where he could finally be accepted and not judged. Seasons passed while the lonely duckling wandered, enduring cold and hardship. He grew bigger and stronger, though he didn't realize how much he had changed. One day he came upon a clear lake and saw his reflection in the still water. To his astonishment, he no longer saw a gray, awkward creature. He had grown into a majestic, beautiful swan. He wasn't an ugly duckling at all. He had just been different all along. The ant and the grasshopper. In a garden, a hard-working ant spent the warm summer collecting and storing grain for the winter. Her friend, a carefree grasshopper, spent all his time singing and dancing. The grasshopper repeatedly mocked the ant, urging her to stop working and join him in his fun, saying there was plenty of time. The ant refused, explaining that she was preparing for the cold, harsh winter when food would be scarce. The grasshopper ignored her advice to save food for himself. When winter finally arrived, the grasshopper was left cold, weak, and starving because everything was covered in snow. He went to the ant's door and begged her for shelter and food, offering to sing for her. The ant reminded him of how she had worked hard while he had laughed and wasted his time. She refused to let him in, saying she only had enough food for herself. The grasshopper then realized his mistake. He should have prepared for the future instead of focusing only on immediate pleasure. The thirsty crow. It was a sweltering day with the sun overhead when birds and animals could find very little to drink to quench their thirst. Among them was a thirsty crow who searched for water all over the fields. He looked everywhere, but there was not a drop to drink. He felt weak and sad and thought to himself. He suddenly saw a water pitcher. He hoped there is some water in that little pitcher. He flew straight down to that pitcher to see if water was left in it. And to his surprise, there was some water in the pitcher. As the crow pushed his head into the pitcher, it could not go deeper. The pitcher was high with a narrow neck, and the water level was too low. The crow did not lose hope. He looked around and started thinking of a way to get water out of the pitcher. Then an idea struck him. He saw some pebbles on the ground. The crow started collecting pebbles one by one and dropped them into the pitcher. As more and more pebbles went into the pitcher, the water rose up. Soon enough, the water came to a level through which the crow could drink water. He drank the water happily and thanked Mother Nature.